And when there are reports to be given, he is the prophet, he will give the reports. And so I looked down and I couldn't face him. And then he asked me, "Did you hear?" And I said, "Yes, I've heard." 2 times, 3 times. And then he asked me, "Do you want God to help you?" And I said yes, because I thought maybe God would not tell me to sleep with men or even to do the abominable things, because it is fornication. And then that is when he told me to sit down. He told me to sit down, and I obeyed very humbly, and I sat down. When I sat down, he told me to put my legs like this. Yes, and I was obeying. And then he inserted his hand inside me. You see? And after inserting his hand, he used the paper bag. So he's the same man that God was saying to find. So I couldn't look at him, because after sitting down and inserting his hand in me, in my private parts, so he told me to sleep like this, and I did. So I closed my eyes, because this is the man of God, and I was so ashamed. But because God is saying, and I have to clench my teeth, God. But I could hear the sound of the paper bag. So he's the one who was using the paper bag, and then he's the one who is removed. He's the one who did it. In fact, he didn't remove, because he was doing it sideways, and I couldn't look. And then after he finished, he told me that God said, "Go and wash these clothes with water and dry them where there is no direct sunlight."
Hello, my viewer. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever time you're watching us from. My people, Kenya is cold. It's cold. It's cold. I feel like I need to put my hat, but my director has told me I need even to drop it, and I'm feeling so cold. It's another beautiful day. We thank God for this amazing day, and today I'm here with a very, very, very I come before you with a lot of humility, because what I'm about to discuss today is very delicate. It's very delicate, but it's also very helpful and useful to you, my viewer, and to other people across the world globally. Why? My viewer today has gone through a lot in the name of, will I say husband? Will I say minister of God? I don't know. I don't know how to put it. But because she's here, I'll let her introduce herself and take us through her story. Welcome. Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, and I thank God. Yes.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for allowing me to share your interview and your story, because when I read your message, you were like you wanted to alert people, and you also wanted to let people know what is going through in the society that we are today.
Yes.
And before we start maybe your story, I would like you to look at that camera. Just say hi to people and tell them who you are.
Hello viewers, my name is Martha Muthoni, but I've changed my name to be Martha Mbarikiwa. I bless God and I'm a Kenyan.
Wow. Martha Muthoni to Martha Mbarikiwa.
Yes.
I'm sure you'll let us know why you changed your name.
Thank you.
You've changed it even in your ID?
No.
Okay, okay. Just kindly maybe tell us a bit about you growing up, being brought up by your parents, to where now, what has brought us here. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm the firstborn of my family, and I was brought up in Elbagon. That is where my parents are. I can say by a single mom. I grew up well. I went to school up to primary level. Then after finishing class 8, I came to Nakuru. So I went to Nakuru because I'm here in Nairobi. And I went to work as a house girl. So that is where I was working. And then I met a guy, and we married. And I have 2 children with him. That is where I met the so-called false prophet.
Okay. Just before we get into I think you've rushed so much, Martha. How many are you in your family?
We are 6.
You're the firstborn.
Yes.
So what happened that you just finished primary and you didn't continue? Was it financial issues, or were you stepping out for your siblings to gain education also?
It was financial
Okay,
problems.
okay.
Yes.
So at what age did you go to become a house girl?
I was a teenage. I can't remember
Okay.
the date.
And so how much were you being paid at that time?
First, I ran away from home. It was 300 shillings.
Which year was that?
I don't remember the year.
Okay.
I really don't. I don't
Okay.
get to
It's
record
okay.
the years.
It's okay. So you got
But it was in the 90s.
in the
because
90s.
I did my KCP in 1996.
1996.
Yes.
Okay, so you came to Nakuru, you worked as a house girl. For how long did you work for you to come to get into marriage?
I worked for for many years.
Okay.
Because after there, I went to Mombasa as a house girl. Then I came back to Nakuru. And then I worked around Nakuru for some time. When I was working there, that is where I met that guy. I don't remember the year.
Your ex-husband now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, my ex-husband.
Okay, so you got married which year?
It was in 1999.
1999.
In 2000, that is when I got my firstborn.
Okay, so you got married in 99.
Yes.
Was it a civil wedding? Was it a traditional? Or was it just a come we stay?
Yeah.
It was a come we stay. Okay. So tell us, how was your marriage?
Because I was young, I didn't know what marriage is. But I wanted to have a marriage because I loved the guy. He was my first love. And yes, we loved each other. Though we struggled because he didn't have a good job. And the ups and downs of marriages, there were. And then I had my firstborn in 2000. And even in that 2000, even after being in that marriage, because he was young and I was young, so we didn't know anything about marriage. So at first, we were struggling with knowing each other and bringing a baby. And we went through hardships. Then life continued. I didn't know anything about church because where I grew up, it wasn't a Pentecostal church. So there was a lady who wanted me to join them in their Pentecostal church, and so I joined them. And that is where I was fellowshipping. And then I didn't fellowship for long. Then I went out of the church and I was at home. That is where I became sick. First, before I became sick, we were quarreling, fighting in the house, in the marriage. The usual way I can say in marriages, because
So just hold on, let's make our viewer understand that when you are in marriage, that is when your friend introduced you to a Pentecostal church. So you used to go to Pentecostal church, but was your husband going to that church?
no.
So you
doesn't
just
even
used to
go to
fellowship
church.
there, but your husband was not fellowshipping there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I was alone. I was fellowshipping alone.
Okay.
Yes. And then I stopped fellowshipping to that church, and then I stayed at home for a long time. And then we shifted where I was living to another place. It is the same village. That is when I was sick. When I was sick, I was having this young girl. She's a girl, yeah. She was young. And then my neighbor introduced me to her church, another church. That is us at the second church. So that is where I met the prophet. But before then, he wasn't a prophet. He was a Bible teacher. And as I said, I was sick, and then they welcomed me to that fellowship, and they prayed for me. Yes, and I got healed. So I loved that church because I got healed.
Where were you sick?
Yeah, I can't even say, because it was in my body.
Okay.
I was shivering, like malaria.
Okay.
And I didn't have money to go to the hospital.
Okay.
So by then I was pregnant, the second born.
Okay.
And then after being prayed for healing, they prayed for me for salvation, because I didn't know anything about salvation. And then after that, I started fellowshipping with them. And that is where I met him. Before then, he was a husband and a father to some children.
To your children?
No.
To other children?
Yes.
Okay.
I knew him as a man of God, and as a father of so-and-so, and a husband of so-and-so. Yes, and he was a man of God. So he was not the pastor himself, no. But he later became a prophet. But there was a prophetess in that church. And then after the church, we were fellowshipping for some time. I fellowshipped with them for some time, until one day the church divided, but I didn't know the issues. The church divided. I wasn't following so much on the things of the church so much. Me, I went to fellowship and then go home, fellowship and then go home. And because they were my neighbors, not such close neighbors, but they were of my areas. So they knew me. So when we were coming out of church, we were fellowshipping together in houses. And one day, when they came to my house, they told me that now the prophet is this, the man is the prophet now.
So
before.
This man that was doing Bible study is
Yes.
now the prophet,
Yes,
and they have
he's now
come
the-
to your house.
Yes.
And by that time, are you still living with your husband?
By that time, yes, I was living with my husband.
And has your husband joined this church?
No.
So you're the only one fellowshipping
Yes, yes,
there? Okay.
yes,
So they've started the house-to-house fellowship?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes, we were fellowshipping, but he was working even at Sundays, so he didn't.
Still in
fellowship.
Nakuru?
Yes, in
Okay.
Nakuru, yes, and even he didn't like church.
Okay.
So, as a woman, I went to church because of my house. We fellowshiped, house to house fellowship. The church divided again, so we were left 4 people.
And what is the cause of the division?
You know, them as men of God, they know. But as for me, I wasn't following. I wasn't that close.
So you
to the
didn't
men
know
of
what
God.
was happening?
No.
Okay.
They were telling me so and so left, so and so left.
So who is telling you this?
Them.
So the
Yes,
prophet now?
yes.
Okay. The one that already has changed from being a Bible teacher to
Yes.
the prophet?
Yes.
Okay.
And he was telling me not to follow them because they are rebellious. So I continued fellowshipping with them because they are even they are the ones who prayed for me and I got healed. So I was fellowshipping with them. At that time, we started having conflicts with the husband, and we were fighting, quarreling, separating, coming together like that. And so, because I have a spiritual father, and there is a man who is talking to God, and I never knew that there are people who speak to God. Anyway, I wasn't brought in a church like that, so it gave me fear, and also to trust them and believe them, because if they can speak to God, they can speak to God about my marriage. So I have to share with them because I believed they are the servants of God. And that is when the prophet told me that God has said, that is not my husband. And I said, he's not my husband, why? God said, that is not your husband. You're in the wrong marriage. And I asked, what should I do? You leave so that God will not be angry. And I was naive.
No, let me allow me to understand this.
Yes.
The prophet has come and told you that God has said this is not your husband.
Yes.
And you're supposed to leave your husband so that God cannot be angry.
Yes.
Okay.
Because when God says something,
you must obey it.
Yes. And I knew it is true because he is the one who joined people together, who joins people together.
Okay.
So, being naive as I was, I went to the man and told him.
You walked to your husband?
Yes. And I told him, God said you are not my husband. And he said, so I am not your husband. Who told you that? He said, the church where I am. The prophet, God spoke to the prophet, and he said, you're not my husband. So we are not going to continue to live together. And I am pregnant, and I have a 3-year-old girl. And so I'm the one who walked out. Because how can I continue to live with the man that is not my husband? And then the prophet said, there is the man that God ordained for me. So God will bring that man, and he will marry me. The right person, the right man, the right husband. And he also said, it doesn't matter for how long you've been married, because that is not your marriage. Even if you stay there, one day you come out. So God is rescuing you early, so you must come out early. What? And I believed.
Martha, which church was this?
I can't mention names.
What? So you walked
Although
out.
There is no church anymore.
It died.
It died. It got finished. I don't even know where they are.
So you walked out of your marriage. Where were you going? You didn't have a job. You have kids.
It's not the mega church, so it is not known.
Yeah. So I'm asking, you've left your marriage. You have a 3-year child. You are pregnant. You don't have a job. Where are you going?
To look for work. Because God will help me.
And where will you be staying?
So I was going to look for work. And then, after being paid, I rent a house.
Okay.
By the way, they didn't tell me how to live. They didn't tell me if you leave your husband, stay here,
Yeah.
do this,
Yeah, that's
do
what
that.
that's the
I have
question
to
I was
use my
coming.
common sense. Because if God says this, you do it. You don't question, you don't ask. And they won't help me further. So I had to work. In fact, but by then I was working. I was working and leaving my child with someone else. So we were helping each other, I and the father of my child. So when I knew that I have to leave, I have to put money together. And by then, the house was not that much. The house was, I remember it was like 400 and something. Yeah, it was not much. But by then, money had value. So that 400, it was like 4K. Yes, by then. Because I was being given 50 shillings per day where I was working. And 50 shillings was a lot by then. So I had to move out and I have to find a house. And I have to live with my child. I couldn't leave my child with him. And even after leaving him, we were like stealing love. But I didn't want the church to know. So until I made up my mind, I have to stop and I have to live alone. Because even if we continue like hiding, God is seeing. And then God will take the prophet. And then the prophet will say in church. So I was scared.
I love it. You love Martha. Okay. So.
Yeah. And by then I didn't know the word of God. Because I didn't know the word of God says that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind.
Amen.
I didn't know. If I knew then, no, maybe I would have stand. But if I did, where would the testimony come from?
Yeah.
God knows. So I started living alone with my child, and life was really difficult. But the church won't help you. And although life was difficult, you must give tithes, offerings, and some offerings without names. Because God said this, God said that, God said that, bring this, bring that, bring this. Without this God, I say this God because by then I thought it is the real God that we worship. But now I know it wasn't the real God. Yes.
So how long did this continue?
It continued. It continued. I never keep record of years, so you will pardon me.
It's okay.
Yes, I only know that it continued until I gave birth to my second born. Before I gave birth to my second born, like 2 weeks before giving birth, they were telling me to go home to my parents. And because after where I was working, because of the tummy, it grew bigger, and so I couldn't work anymore. So they gave me leave. I went home. The little that I had, we ate. I didn't have money for rent anymore. I didn't have food. We were suffering. We were sleeping hungry. Then when they told me to go home, I told my aunt that I have to go home and I have to leave my things. Because I had some little things, the beddings and everything. I had to live with them. And then my aunt asked me, they are not your people. They are not your family. Why are you leaving your things with them? And I couldn't tell my aunt it is because of church. God has said, because it is God said, you go home and leave your things here. Because one day when you will come back, you will find
same God has said you go home, you leave your things with the church.
Yes, I leave it because when I come back, I will find them. And so I will continue with life. So I won't struggle to buy things. And I believed. But my aunt did not believe. But I couldn't share with her. I even never shared with anyone at home. I couldn't tell her that the church was telling or that God was saying. No, I couldn't. Because when God says something, it is secret. So don't go exposing me anyway. And I told them, my aunt said no. And then they said they have to rent a house far away for me near the church now, because where we were living from, it was far from home. We had to pay 20 shillings to walk. So
To
me,
church.
I was trekking
Okay.
because I didn't have money. So they rented me a house there. It was 250, so it was cheap. And then they said, God said that they rent for me for 1 month, and they buy food for 2 weeks, and that food is not for breakfast or lunch, it is for supper only. And then after that, then the only money they will give me, it was 500 to go to start a business, and that is after 2 weeks after I deliver. That is what happened. So they rented the house and I went to live there with my child. So I gave birth. After giving birth, I had to stay in the house, giving birth without anything to eat, without tea, without anything. And didn't go to hospital, but God gave me grace. He gave birth in the house.
You delivered your baby and yourself?
God sent angels. I just say God sent angels because He's the one who helped me. Yes.
Wow.
I didn't have money to go to hospital. So I didn't even have a...
Did the church people come to help you?
They can't come because you are defiled. You see that church, when you give birth, they can't come early because you are defiled.
Oh God.
Until like, is it 2 weeks or 1 month? It depends by the gender of the child.
Okay. What? So how would you survive? Because you've just given birth.
Yes.
Any woman who gives birth is very weak. You have no one to take care of you. Your firstborn is only 3 years. Martha, didn't you just like have a second thought and just thought that these people were deceiving you? Didn't you even think of that?
No.
God has spoken. For you, everything was God has spoken.
Yes, and everything was right.
By this time, let me just take you back, allow me. By this time now you've moved on, you're going to give birth on yourself. Have your parents known, or your family, have they known that you've moved out of your marriage? They don't know. They still know you're in marriage. So you're still hiding to cover up your prophet. Okay.
They didn't know, but I later came and told them. So they knew. After I've given birth, and after the child was like, I don't remember whether it was 1 year or 2 years. Yes. So they found out. But they don't know anything about God is saying, God is saying. That I can't tell them. So after, you see, the church had given me food for 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks, after giving birth, I have food for supper only. It was flour for ugali. So I had to wait until that time.
To eat?
Yes. Because if I eat early, what will I eat in the evening? But I just glorify God because He's the one who strengthened me. Yes, He's the one who gave me strength. No one knew that I was suffering, but I had to do it because I know God will see me through, as we were always told. And for sure, He did see me through. Yes. So after 2 weeks, my baby is small. I had to go to start a business, and I had to go buy fruits to sell them on our gate there outside, not far, because my child is very small. Yes, and I was going very far to get them. No transport, so I have to walk. Yes. And then after that, after the child was like, I think it was like 1 year or 2 years, I don't remember. I don't really remember the time, but he was young because he was suckling, and because I was I was struggling to bring them up. I was struggling to feed them. They said that the prophet said that God said I should take the children home to my mom, and that God will take care of the children, and God will give me favor to my mom. And so I had to take the children there. And I went and I spoke with my mom, though she cried because of my sufferings. And I told her our agreement was, when I go back, I'll find job, and then I'll be sending her money. And so she was okay then. So I left my 2 children there. That one was really young because he was suckling. He's a boy. The other one is a girl. And he was suckling. So I left them. And then I came back. After that, I continued to fellowship with the church. And the first month, I got my salary. Do you know how much I was paid? I was paid 1,000. And my house rent by then was 250. Yes, it was 250.
So when you took your kids back home, you came back, you got a job?
Yes.
What job were you doing that time?
It was a housework.
Okay.
As a maid. So, and I was being paid that much. So after the end of the month, I went home. I went to see my children and I went to see my mom. So, and I took the little that I had with him. But first I had to tell them that I am going home, because anything you do, you must
tell them.
And then if God confirms it, you can go ahead. So they didn't respond. I just told them. I didn't wait for answers. I just gave them the information and then I went. So I went home and then I came back. So the second month, I had to tell them that I'm going, because I couldn't send the money. We didn't have phone by then. So I had to go myself. And then they asked me, they told me, no. You know God was angry even the first time when you went. Did God tell you to go? No, I didn't. I didn't wait anyway. I didn't wait by then. I didn't know that I had to wait for answers. So they told me God is angry. You shouldn't go. The first time you went, you shouldn't have sent that money, because God is the one who is going to take care of your children. It is God who gave you favor to your mom to take the kids, and the same God is going to take care of the children. And I thought that makes sense. By then, I thought it is okay, and I couldn't ask anything. Yes, and then the money that I was to send, I am to give to the church account. So they call it the church account. So I have to give to church account. And then I thought, sometimes I was thinking that when we give there, then they'll give me later. If I need anything or if I need to go, then they'll give me. But no. They said, God said, the money that is in the account belongs to God. We should not think about it. We should not ask about it. God can say, throw this money to the river, or give this money to someone. So when you give, you don't ask questions. Because if you do, God will deal with you. And I feared God for sure, because I didn't know it wasn't the real God.
So you stopped taking money home and you were giving to the church?
Yes.
And how long did this continue, Martha?
It continued until my mom came with the children now. Yes. My mom really suffered with that child.
How did you feel when you saw your mom with your kids?
I cried. I really cried.
And did you have like a wake-up call?
A wake-up call. We were even together with the prophet. I was shifting. By then I was shifting because, like I said, I was told, shift here, go there. When you live there, you have to relocate. You have to relocate. You have to relocate, you see. So I was on my way. In fact, I was on my last luggage that I was shifting. And then my mom came with my aunt. And when my mom looked at me, she just cried and I cried. And she asked me, Mothoni, what happened? What could I tell her? What could I tell her? What could I tell her? I didn't tell her anything.
Why?
I just said, I didn't have money. That's all I told her. I didn't have money. If I told her that it was because of the church or God said, then God will deal with me, maybe kill me. But most of the times I was told God will leave me.
God will leave you?
Yes.
So those are the threats that the prophets were using on you?
Exactly.
So now that you were shifting that day, where were you taken again?
I was taken somewhere again, where the rent was 500. And you see?
And are they paying for
my
you?
No. I'm the one who is paying. My salary is 1,000. And
your rent now is 500?
Yes, my rent is now is 500.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're left with 500?
Mm-hmm.
So this 500, do you buy yourself food, clothes, or do you take it to church?
So how can you buy food with it? Unless God tells you to buy. They say you have to ask God, and God will tell you what to buy. You buy this food, you buy this.
Let me ask you something, Muthoni. All this time, were you not praying? Because I think you need to pray for yourself and to listen to your inner voice.
Pray. But I never had the inner voice. You see, I am praying and I have stresses. I am struggling. I have to give the church money. I have to cater for my children. Now they are here, and still, even if I am living with them, the money that I have, when I pay the house rent, and then I'm left with 500, I have to give tithe and another offering. So the little that I'm left with, I have to buy food for my children. And what the food that I have to buy, it's not sufficient. So even my children didn't have enough money, enough food to eat.
Did they ever go to school?
I didn't have money to take my child to school, but their daughter, because they had a daughter by then, yes, their child was going to school. But mine was not going to school. I didn't have money for food.
So how long did this continue?
It continued for a long time. It continued for a long, long time. Until one day, my aunt is the one who took the children now again. She came and told me to relocate to go to her place. And then I couldn't go there. So I didn't want anything with my family, you see, because I will tell them the things of the church, and I don't want to. And I believe the church so much, so I had to stay with the church. So my aunt took the kids, that I couldn't follow her. So I read. And I started living alone without the children, but still fellowshipping. Yes. So we continued to fellowship for some time, without even knowing how my kids are, because I couldn't go home, I couldn't go to my aunt. So I was living like that. And then they had to find a husband for me.
The church?
Yes. So they said, God said that before then, we were told to look for men to marry us.
Look for?
For men to marry us.
How many were you?
We were two.
Oh.
Me and the other one.
Okay. So that church, you are two single ladies?
Yes.
Okay.
Mainly I speak about myself. Yes. So I avoid naming them.
Okay, it's okay.
So we were told to look for men to marry us. It was hard because at first we were told we couldn't get married. No one could marry us because we have children.
But the same people have told you to leave your husband.
Yes, it is God, the same God. Higher, the same God said that now we have to find men to marry us. And then it was hard because as a woman, how can you go approaching men and tell them that, will you marry me?
Yeah.
It was hard for me. But still I was scared of the same God. But this time round, I didn't find for men. I didn't go finding men. Because even I had many stresses, so in me, I didn't have the thoughts of getting married again. So I wanted to just be myself and serve God. Yeah. After failing to find men, so now God had found a man for me. And then they have to take me to that man. And the man is not saved, so he's not a Christian like me. And he was a drunkard. And I was not to question. So you are taken there, and you are taught to communicate or talk to each other, and then you are left. And so I continued as a wife there. I lived there for some time. In that same house, I think I've gone ahead. Sorry, can I go back?
Yeah, it's okay, it's okay.
Yes. Before they found a man for me, I was told there is a report for me, because each and every one of us was given a specific report privately, away from others. So one day the prophet said that God has a report for me. So I asked to be given the report, and I was told, I'll give you later. So when the others are gone, and remember we were living in the same plot after shifting. And one day he came and told me, now God is calling you for the report. So I went to hear the report. And then when I went, he told me that since I think it is because we failed to look for men for ourselves, now it's like a punishment, I think. God said that you find a man, and that man should sleep with you with a paper bag. Yes. And I was shocked. I looked down, so I couldn't face him.
A man should sleep with you with a paper bag?
Yes. If you can remember the paper bags that time.
Okay.
The ones that were bound.
Yes,
the plastic ones that they were bound. By that time, he was not living with his wife. His wife has left.
They're separated?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
She was going to visit and come back, visit and come back. But we as the church, sometimes we will fellowship in that house, sometimes. And when there are reports to be given, he is the prophet, he will give the reports. And so I looked down, and I couldn't face him. And then he asked me, did you hear? And I said, yes, I've heard. 2 times, 3 times. And then he asked me, do you want God to help you? And I said yes, because I thought maybe God would not tell me to sleep with men, or even to do the abominable things, because it is fornication. And then that is when he told me to sit down. He told me to sit down, and I obeyed. very humbly. And I sat down. When I sat down, he told me to put my legs like this. Yes, and I was obeying. And then he inserted his hand inside me. You see? And after inserting his hand, he used the paper bag. So he's the same man that God was saying to find. So I couldn't look at him because after sitting down and inserting his hand in me, in my private parts, so he told me to sleep like this, and I did. So I closed my eyes because this is the man of God. And I was so ashamed. But because God is saying, and I have to clench my teeth. God. But I could hear the sound of the paper bag. So he's the one who was using the paper bag. And then he's the one who is removed. He's the one who did it. In fact, he didn't remove because he was doing it sideways. And I couldn't look. And then after he finished, he told me that God said, go and wash these clothes with water and dry them where there is no direct sunlight. And that is what I did.
Your clothes?
Yes.
God forbid.
Because it was a report, as he was calling it.
Jesus.
And I obeyed. I couldn't question, because if I dare, God will deal with me.
Oh my God.
And because many times I think it is the spirit of threats he was using, and the spirit of fear, because for sure I was really scared and I feared a lot. I washed the clothes, I hugged them, and then the next day, was it, I think the next day or the day after that, I don't remember well, but when he now came to that point. He came and he told me that God is angry. And
why
I asked
again?
Why? Yes, I asked why. He said that because you did not follow the instructions that the so-called God told you.
What instructions again? Didn't you wash the clothes?
I washed and I put them on a line where there is no direct sunlight. I did that.
So what mistake did you do this time?
That I didn't wash the way I was supposed to wash. I don't know how I was supposed to wash. I couldn't
So what
ask.
is the punishment this time again?
Hey, the punishment. Wait and hear. So he told me, because I didn't follow the instructions, that the same report must repeat.
What?
Yes. And so what he told me this time round, that because God is angry, you are the one to insert the hand. And so I had to sit down. So he said, sit down. And I sat down, looking this way, because he was behind. And I was ashamed. Though I'm ashamed, I can't question.
Do you have your clothes on?
Yes. So I had to put my hand. And then he will tell me, God says you are not putting your hand, you're not penetrating your hand well. So you have to penetrate your hand well. And then I would do like this. So he will tell me, God says you face me. Why are you looking there? And then I had to face him.
Is he still behind you or not in front of you?
He's behind,
So you
so I
have
have
to
to turn.
Oh, you
And
turn your whole
yes.
body.
And I face him. And then do it while facing him.
Oh my God. That's so disgusting.
So I have to cover my hand with my, I was wearing a skirt. And then
So you're
put my
trying
hand
to
like
pull your
this.
skirt
Yes,
down.
yes.
Yeah.
And then he said that I'm not doing it well, so he's the one who is doing it. So he continued. When he inserted then the same report with the paper bag. I don't know where he gets the paper bags because I close my eyes, I don't watch. And I clench my teeth. So,
Martha, how long did this continue?
It continued for a long, long time. For a long time.
Because this is sexual abuse. This
continued.
is sexual abuse.
It continued.
Were you not, did it ever come to your mind that you should tell the wife or any of the church members?
I couldn't because this was private.
So
By
how
then
long,
the wife was not living with him.
So how long was this sexual abuse?
I can't recall the years, but it went for a long time. Sure, it went
every day, every day, every day.
It is not every day, but it is often.
There's always something that God has said so that you do this.
It is not only me. The other one has to get a report. After that, I have to, we exchange reports like that. So it continued for a long time. The wife was not always around. The wife was visiting so many times. I think she was going somewhere. I don't know because I was not following the things of the church. Me, whatever I'm told is whatever I will do. If they tell me this, I do it. Do this, I do it. So that is where the prophet said that God has found a man for me. That is after him
doing whatever he was doing.
Yes. And then they took me to the man. And then after taking me to the man, so I got married.
Was this marriage initiated in the church?
No.
Or you were just taken, you were told this is your husband and that was it?
Exactly like that.
Okay.
So he was taken to that house and I was left there. So it wasn't to go anywhere. It is to take my things there now. And I continued to live there. When I was there, the man was coming, the prophet, to bring the report. And he will come with the same report, but this time he said, God said, he gave me the scriptures. I don't know where that scripture is, but it was about a man called Onan, that God told him to raise children for his brother. And then when he was with the wife of his brother, he was spilling his seeds out. So he said, God will punish me and him. And I said, how? Because the same God is the one who said use paper bag. Now he said that God will punish us because of using the paper bag and spilling the seeds. So in other words, he was saying we should not use any paper bag. And I was okay still because it was really painful. The paper bag was really painful. It was painful. So I was okay and I couldn't question. So the report continued until I fell pregnant. I am living with another man, but the prophet is the
father of your unborn baby.
Yes.
Does this man know?
No. You know, the man respects them. He knows that this is the man
and he's
of
a
God.
drunkard.
Yes.
And he was brought in a wife.
Yes.
Does he even attend church? And how does he know about God? And he's a drunkard.
He doesn't, but he knows they are men
Was
of
all
God.
this not adding 1 + 1 to you?
No. No.
God.
It has never gotten into my mind.
So
I've never even...
How many kids did you brought of the prophet?
3.
So plus your 2 kids, now you have 5 kids.
Yes.
And this man is okay with it?
Yes. You know...
When people talk of juju, now this is what is called juju, mother, because
It is true.
surely, how? What man in his right senses will allow his only wife to be bearing kids for another man, yet he's a man in the house?
He did it.
Were you using protection with your husband?
No,
You are not sleeping with your husband,
I was.
but the kids belonged to the prophet.
Yes.
So you were sleeping with two men. Jesus.
You know,
Hey!
this word for the prophet is not sleeping. Because God said it's not for enjoyment. And I wasn't even enjoying. It was a report.
I love it to laugh, Mother, because, oh my God. Hey! We've had prophet, but this one is now extreme.
And I even never knew, because I didn't know the Bible. To know this is fornication.
Yeah, I totally understand you, because I know there's so many of us who are fallen victims of the so-called prophets. And me, that's why I say, I tell them they're false prophet, because
It is true.
it's high time, I think, people go back to the Bible and read the Bible, and not be not allowed to be always be prophesied.
It is true.
So for how long did you live in this marriage, and for how long were you sleeping with this man?
It continued for a long time. I don't keep records of years, but it continued for a long time until the 2007 election. Yeah, I can say that. 2007 election, the man got really sick.
The husband or the prophet?
The husband. The husband. And then the family of the husband took him to his hometown, to the village. Then I was left with a child at the house, and I don't have a job. And so the prophet said, God says, there is another husband in Nairobi, so you have to go there. And I'm okay with this child. So I've got to go there. And I was told to use contraceptives. I think so that I will not have another baby, I don't know. So I went and I lived with the mom. So I was taken there and I was living with the mom.
With your 5 children?
No. Remember the 2 children are with my mom?
Okay. Your aunt actually took your 2 children?
Yes, and then they took the children to my mom.
What about these 3 kids of the prophet?
We haven't gotten to the 3 kids. It is the first now. The other 2 are coming.
Oh, so during the first marriage with the drunkard, you bore 1 kid?
Yes.
So now you're in the second, now we'll call it the third marriage, because you're in the first marriage, you're told that is not your husband. The second marriage, the husband is sick, has been taken by his people. Now you brought in Nairobi. Where exactly in Nairobi?
It was in Kawangware.
Kawangware. Now this is the third husband. Okay, so the third husband, you're told to take contraceptives.
Yes.
So is the prophet in Nairobi or in Nakuru?
Nakuru.
Nakuru.
Yes.
But you're in Nairobi?
Yes.
Okay.
I have to live with him for some time, and then they called me back to Nakuru. So that is where the report now started again. Then the second child
Kim.
Yes. We continue to fellowship. We continue to fellowship. We continue to fellowship until before that child came. I was suffering so much because when I came back, I didn't come to get married. I came back and rented a house. So they are the one who rented the house, that they should be where to live.
So you've left your husband again, Kawangware?
Yes.
Is this husband of yours not following you?
No. Me, I didn't even love them. And I don't even think they loved me either.
Why were they getting these husbands for you? And these husbands, were they Kikuyus? Were they...
And that other husband is a drunkard too.
Your tribe?
It's their tribe.
Which is their tribe?
They were lawyers.
Hey!
But I have nothing of tribalism. I don't discriminate.
Yeah, it's true. It's not. We are not here for tribalism.
Yes.
We are here just to make sure To open people's eyes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Let us say they were not my tribe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came back, and I was suffering so much with my child. It is the first child, so that the second child came to Nakuru when the report was continuing. And then because I was suffering so much, I wanted to stop the church and stop the so-called like relationship. But it is not even a relationship. That same thing, that act. So, and I was praying. Then I wanted to quit. And he told me, I don't know whether his God showed him or what, but he told me that God said, whoever will separate us, God will deal with him. Yeah, and we were meant together. And I got scared. So I went somewhere in a forest to pray. We usually went there to pray, to fast and pray. So I went there fasting and praying for God to forgive me because of saying that I didn't want the report of him. And when God said he will deal with the person, I was scared and believed now. I really totally believed it is God. So when after prayers, there came a man because I was closing my eyes. And that man pushed me back and he raped me. And my second child now, my second born child was there. And after that, and I got scared. And after that, after I was being raped, I wanted to kill myself.
You're being raped when you're in prayers?
Yes.
In the mountain?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You see, when I am in the mountain, I am praying, God, please forgive me. And this is fornication. It is prostitution. And I am begging God
for forgiveness.
Please, God, forgive me for telling your servant this. Please, God, forgive me. I will not repeat it again. Please, God, forgive me. Give me another chance. Don't leave me, because I was told God will leave me. So I had to pray, and then I was raped. I wanted to kill myself because in the mountain, it's like a hill, and there is a valley, very deep. If you throw yourself, then people will not find you, maybe the clothes. So because I knew that he will come prayers there, he'll find my clothes, so he is the one who will know. But funny enough, God removed that pain. And I found myself praying for that man and telling God, God, please forgive him. And forgive, don't even let his children pass through what he has done to me. And I kept praying until I went home. But on my way home, I was asking God, please, because you know, when he was doing that, he was saying that he's, what we call it, sanctification. He was sanctifying. So
did you see his face?
The man? No, I'm not speaking about the rape. The man has gone. And after the man has gone, yes, I saw the man. But what could I have done to him? He has overpowered me, and I'm in the forest alone with my child. So I had to take my child, and he left. So on my way, I was saying that, God, please, let me find the prophet to sanctify me, because that is what I was told. The report that he was giving us, it was for sanctification. Yes. So I was asking God, please, let me find him to sanctify me. Yeah, to wash me the evil things, the dirt. And it happened. And I believed that God sanctified me. So, and I believed that I was pure. After the prophet has sanctified me, I believed God. So after that, it continued until the third child now came. After the third child, I remember even when I am bringing up these children, it's like I'm alone. He comes to visit, so we are not married. He comes to visit, I get children, he goes. So I was suffering so much. And that is when, according to him, he said that God has said that I have become rebellious because I was crying and I was asking questions. And we were not supposed to ask questions. We were never allowed to ask questions. But I was asking questions. And then he said that God has said that I am rebellious. And he's angry with me for asking so many questions. And he said God has left me. So he said that God has said to take a pin and to pin my dress and to walk out and leave the children. God will send people. He will send someone to take care of the children. And then I have to walk. And wherever I am going, I will never reach there. So I'll never reach wherever I am going. So maybe I will die. I don't know. And I was so scared. So I cried and cried and I cried. I cried screaming. And then he said God is angry and he has left me and God has told him to leave. So he left and shut the door behind him. So I continued to cry and scream and scream and scream in pain. And then he came back. And he said, God has heard your cry. And then, but so that God will forgive you, the same report must continue. And I said, I'm in my menses. And he said, God knows. So he said, what I will do, I'll take the blood of the menses and smear to the children. And so I did.
That's
And
demonic.
God
What's
forgave
that?
me. I don't know. I never thought about it until lately. So I followed because I didn't want the so-called God to leave me.
You allowed your menses to be smeared all over your kids?
Yes.
Martha, didn't you ever even have anyone to talk to? Because I think this is too much.
Talk to who? And God will hear. You know, I'm so glad when I'm speaking and when I'm talking this, because I was scared before. Because if I tell someone, God will hear. And if God hears, he will leave me. And if God leaves you, you will be raped on the road. Because that is what we were told, especially when we were told to look for men. God will make you be raped and be killed. So I didn't want to be killed or raped outside. And I didn't have anyone to speak to, not even a soul. It was all here. And I have kept it for years.
So how long did you stay with this prophet?
You know, first we were not married.
Yeah.
And then it came a time after this child was born. That is in 2012. 2012, I can remember. I don't remember the month. But 2012, after the child was born, that is when the so-called God himself told him to tell me that now I am officially married to him.
Okay. So 2012, you were officially married to him.
Yes.
Still, those marriages come with stay.
Yes.
Because there's no initiation of God here. That one I
Yes.
totally agree.
Yes.
So how long did you stay in that marriage? That today you've said you're a single mother.
Hey.
Yeah.
It is of late. It is 2020 or 2021. We are in 2022.
20, yeah.
Yes, I think it is in 2020.
You left the marriage.
No, I didn't leave, but God intervened.
How?
I was praying. First, I opened up to the man of God, where I am fellowshipping, where I found, after finding the Holiness Church, after fellowshipping with them, God gave me a heart and a feeling or a sense to share, and I shared with him. And he told me that is not a marriage. You are living in fornication. And he also told me you are living in adultery because that man was married. You see? And now, that is an unclean marriage. But we have to pray for God to intervene, to bring a divine separation. So he didn't tell me, go and pack and leave. So he said, we are going to pray for God to bring a divine separation. And so, yes, God brought a divine separation. Yeah.
How did it happen?
When it happened before, it is a long story, but I would cut. I will only say the final part. There was another lady who was involved, and he was having a child with him.
Again?
Yes.
Now, apart from the wives that used to come and go.
Yes, this one, and these ones are with me now. And by that time I was angry because I was speaking, and I was telling him that how much he has hurt me, and the pain that I've gone through, and after this, now afterwards what he is doing. And by the way, he repented. He asked for forgiveness, and I forgave him. And after forgiving him, he brought the child. We lived with the child, and I forgive even the child because the child is innocent, so the child doesn't know anything. So he said that the mother of the child left the child to him, and so he has to take care of the child. And I agreed.
So you had 4 kids in that house?
Yes. Yes. I had to take care of him because God has taught me to forgive. I have to forgive. And then he told me that he will not continue with the relationship, and I agreed. And but I told him to go to my parents to marry me officially. And until then, we are not going to be, to stay like as if we are married. Okay, we are in the same house, but he has first to officialize through, to go to my parents first, and then we have to go to church. But he continued with the girl, and I found out because the woman was calling me with his phone, and how he got my number, she got my number, I don't know. And it was very painful. It was painful. So I went for prayers 5 days. I fasted 5 days. I went somewhere in a prayer center, and I prayed, and I asked God to bring a divine separation, just like the man of God who was helping me. Because I told God, if there is a divine separation, there is no casualties and death, because people are killing each other so much. And I told God to intervene. So I told God I want to be free, and I also want to be holy and righteous. And after coming, I told God I would show him any bad things. I would tell him, go, or I will leave, but I'm going to wait for the Lord. And one day I came, and I found that his trousers are not in the house. And then his tops are not in the house. His things, he started carrying his things.
Wow.
One by one, one by one, one by one. And he left the house without us fighting or quarreling. So I don't know where he is, and I don't even want to know. I just told God, when this man gets out of this house, before he got out, I told God, when this man leaves, you are the man of the house. And I told God that this house is yours, I am yours, and my children are yours. And so we are in your hands. And that is how we are.
Wow, wow, wow.
I glorify God.
Amen.
I also forgave him, and it took time. It took time, but I was being taught by the man of God about forgiveness, and they were praying for me. And then they gave me scriptures. they were giving scriptures about forgiveness, because God says if we forgive men their trespasses, our Heavenly Father will also forgive our trespasses. So I didn't want to have any grudges with him, so that the Holy Spirit will fill my heart and will have a space.
And
so
now you're with your kids?
Yes.
How many are they now?
I'm living with 4 and my grandson, so they are 5. The other one is living with my mom.
Okay. How do you feel now? Do you feel like now you're in the right place? Do you feel like now you can identify a false prophet and a real prophet?
Well, it is. I just glorify God because I have learned so much. So much. I have really learned. And yes, I can identify through the help of the Holy Spirit. Yes.
And now what, after leaving your marriage, is that when you decided to change your name?
Oh, my name has just changed recently.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
After this testimony, the first one.
Wow.
Yes.
I really applaud you for coming out, Martha. And it's good because maybe someone is watching there, and maybe they're in certain church, that maybe they are being told such things that you are told.
Yes.
And like I've always said, the Bible tells us that a lot of people will come in the name of God.
Yes.
And I think it's high time that people continue just to read their Bible on their own,
It is true.
for them to understand what God talks about and what God tells us.
Yes.
Because we have so many false prophets and false ministers of God. I'm not saying all of them, but I know majority are there. They're manipulating people.
Yes.
And I would not tell you I'm sorry for what you've gone through, just because you said that it is God who made you go through for you to be where you are today, to educate people.
Yes.
Your story is a testimony, and I am very, 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 I really congratulate you for coming out. You know, going through false marriages and ending up even with a false prophet, being sexually abused over 8 years is not a joke. Trying to seek God, and when you go to seek God, and today I think I'll tell you, even I think whatever happened to you when you are praying, I think it was planned. Yeah, it's for you for you now to believe what you're always told, that if God leaves, you're going to be raped, you're going to be robbed. I think for me, I will, and even my viewer, I'm very sure you'll agree with me that Martha, even that rape, it was something that was planned. And today, I'm happy that you've taken in your kids and you don't blame your kids. And every kid comes with a reason. It may not be your will, but I know God is going to sustain you. What are you doing currently?
I wash clothes for people. Yes.
And where do you live?
I live in Madare.
You live in Madare.
Yes.
God will make a way for you.
Amen.
And I'm sure God will open for you doors.
Amen.
And I know from today henceforth, once your story reaches out to people, I know God will change your story.
Yes.
And I know one day you'll come. I don't know why you chose Soipan, but I know God had a reason for it.
Yes.
And for me, the only thing I'll tell you, keep on trusting God. And now I know you're much careful. You've learned from your own mistake. You've learned from your own lesson. Be out there and encourage people and seek God. And also bring those kids at the will of God. And I know God is going to bless you. And at the right time, your purpose on earth, God will come to fulfill it. Let's just before we wind up, I would like you maybe to tell people, if someone wants to reach you out, you've said you work, you can be called for any job you can do. Someone might need you maybe to work for her or him. How will they reach you?
My numbers are 0714 01 56 63. No. 0714 01 56 63. Yes, it is right.
Names?
Names are Martha Mwangi.
Martha Mwangi. Martha, I wish you all the best. And my people, you've heard Martha's story. If you're there, you can empower her, you can encourage her, you can just encourage her with a message. Kindly reach out to her. And thank you also for always tuning in, for always subscribing, commenting and sharing. Like I've always said, if you have an inspiring story, you have something to encourage our people out there, you can reach us on our email running down your screen, on the numbers going down on your screen. You can either reach me or our director, who is always behind the camera. I will thank you so much for Race Array Gardens for giving us an amazing space to host our shows. I don't take this for granted. Thank you for Gabriel Collection for always dressing up your girl. I still emphasize with a small G. On Facebook, you can find us, locate us there, and order, and we shall deliver at your doorstep. Thank you so much. God bless you. Continue subscribing, commenting, sharing, and liking this content. Until next time, shalom and God bless.
God bless.